Hey there, welcome to a new album review, and today we have Justice with Planisphère, which I unfortunately got the sad news that Justice are French. For some reason, I never made that connection. But yes, Justice, I haven't heard a lot from them. Specifically, the only thing I've heard is Cross, which, to be fair, is like one of the most, if not the most popular, like albums that they put out. So maybe not my fault on that department. But yes, Justice are a French duo that mostly make French music. Because like I don't know what the fuck is wrong with France and like EDM and just making like bands that do EDM French, but like I mean on this channel we already had some, right? Obviously you have Daft Punk, sure, but we also have Air, for example, right? Which I didn't even know they were French, but yeah, I guess I mean I found out that they were French when I reviewed them, but still, like EDM band French, and now we have Justice French. And it's just like okay, a bit weird that so many, but whatever. But yes, Justice released this EP called Planisphère, and it's an EP that I never heard, but well, it was definitely an experience that was definitely worthy of vibing, because it's honestly very good. The way I can describe this is basically it combines a lot of. First of all, I find it very fascinating that they mostly use synths for things, right? Like, sure, you have the main synth, and then you have like sort of these very, sort of bassy, somewhat distorted like synth as well, right? So essentially, every dynamic in the sound is created by synths, which I find pretty interesting, or at least mostly created by synths. Obviously the beat isn't made by synths, but still, the main sounds are, and I find it really interesting because essentially this EP sort of, first of all, it has 4 songs, but you kind of hear it sort of as an entire piece. It's 17 minutes long, and you sort of hear it as an entire piece, even though it does have technically 4 parts, and you can definitely like hear the 4 parts, but it's really interesting because it transitions. The first song is definitely the longest, 7 minutes, and it's a little bit of one of the like most repetitives or repetitive aspects of it, and definitely it is the closest, I guess, to Cross in terms of vibe. It's very focused on the synths, and it's very focused on that sort of funky vibe that you mostly get from, especially the leading synth, right? So it's a little bit more on, I guess, the toned down side, and then it slowly transitions into a more I guess heavier tone, or at least a tone that definitely uses a lot more guitar, right? It's not like guitar, it's like electronic guitar, and I'm saying electronic guitar here because, like, I mean, if you've ever heard Human After All by Daft Punk, like the specific tone of like the guitar that I'm mentioning here. I don't know if it's an actual guitar or if it's just another synth that is supposed to mimic a guitar, right? And that's kind of why it sounds weird. Actually, I don't have that knowledge, but that's what they use. So essentially, the album goes from like one point, like I guess from Cross to sort of these, I guess, more futuristic. In a weird way, Daft Punk did the exact same thing, so I found that very interesting. But yes, basically, look, something that I find interesting is I think French bands making EDM, you can definitely tell they're French. That's just something that I find very interesting, because the signature sound of EDM French is very like specific. So when you hear a band making EDM music, you almost can tell if they're French or not based on how they sound, or how their sounds sound rather, right? So it's definitely on a like it's very telling, basically, right? Now it is interesting for sure that how do I actually put this? Like, because I found it really interesting how basically they like. It's really hard to explain, because they made this album, or they made this EP rather. It's an EP, and it's just so hypnotic. It's essentially the same thing as homework. I think I mentioned this during homework. During my homework review, I mentioned that Daft Punk were making music, where like a lot of the songs were repetitive, but they just changed slightly, like one note here or there, or like they changed slightly the tone or something, right? And that made it interesting for you to listen to, like despite the fact that, you know, it was repetitive because it's supposed to be repetitive, because it's like French house and it's supposed to, like, you know, be to dancing and whatnot, right? You have that sort of modicum of, like, you know, it stays interesting despite the repetition. I think Justice is very, like, good in that, to the point where, and like, despite the fact that, I guess, let's call it, it's not a beat, but it's like, you know, a certain like a rhythm or loop, let's call it loop, like a certain loop is supposed to be fairly simple as a whole, and it is simple as a whole. They also have this, like, long loop, like it's a long loop basically, so it's a simple loop but it's somewhat long, and there's sort of space for stuff to happen, right? And it's obviously dictated by the lead synth, that's the one that tends to change things. The, you know, background synth is pretty much, or the rhythm synth is pretty much standard and always the same, right? And but it's a very long loop, and I think that's exactly what creates, and the timings of those, it's exactly what creates sort of this idea that despite them being pretty much always the same, you do come away from the music feeling like there is a lot of interesting stuff happening there, and that it's different. Despite the loops being the same and the rhythm being the same, you do come away like feeling that it's different, that there's little details here and there that are completely different from each other, right? And I felt the same thing with Daft Punk on Homework, and I felt the same thing here. Like, there's a lot of that going on, and I mean, I think I would be very right in saying that Justice definitely felt really inspired by Daft Punk. I mean, at this point, like, who hasn't? Like, they were pretty big, they were pretty, I think in terms of like French, and especially French house, I don't think you have like any artist that is bigger than Daft Punk. Like, Daft Punk was incredibly, like, big, right? So I definitely, they feel molded after it. I did, however, and this is something that's maybe more mine, I did feel a certain, like, it reminded me of the Passion Mode to a certain degree, specifically like the synths, you know, like that 80s sort of synth sound, right? Which I guess, again, is like very signature of French house, so, you know, I get. But yeah, basically, well, what more do I have to say? Like, basically, it's like that is the sound that I sort of associate the synths with, I guess, right? Even if technically speaking, the entire project doesn't really have a lot to do with the Passion Mode, you know, but it's definitely interesting that the synths, to me at least, somewhat sounded on the same vein. But yeah, outside of that, I just have to say that there was a part of this EP that I didn't enjoy necessarily. There were some vocals, I think it was in part 3, was it part 2 or 3? No, I think it was part 3, I'm pretty sure. And the vocals, it's the typical, like, distorted vocals. Like, I don't even know if it's necessarily distorted or if it's like vocoded or whatever the hell it is, but essentially I didn't enjoy it. I think that French house, to me, needs to have just the rhythm itself. I understand that the lyrics are there and like the singing is there, sort of break up the monotony, but at the same time, like, I just want to sort of be in full trance of the rhythm itself. I don't think you need the singing. I think actually this is the same criticism I made towards Homework, and like a song or two in Homework, where I thought like the singing was used to break up the monotony, but I actually made the songs worse. So I'm very I'm very interested that, or it's very interesting that I am making the same criticisms, but I didn't. I guess they do also. You know, they sound a lot the same. And lastly, I think the other thing that I want to touch on is transitions. The songs transition really well from one to the other, to the point where between the first song and the second song, so part 1 and part 2, I didn't even realize I was already on part 2. Like, that's how well it transitions. It transitions so smooth, right, that I didn't even realize I was listening to a completely different part of the EP. I thought I was still on part 1, especially because the part 1 is, you know, like double the time of all of the other parts, right? So I thought, oh yeah, it's still part 1. No, it was part 2, and because like it just transitioned so smoothly, I had to go back to re-listen to that part just to make sure that I like caught the transition. And even then, like, the transition definitely is there, but the transition just feels like, you know, transitioning from a part of the song to the other, like for example transitioning from the chorus to the bridge or whatever, right? So like it was so smooth, I didn't even realize it at transition. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I think that's everything that I wanted to touch on. Uh, Man, I forgot how good Justice actually was. I need to actually definitely do a review of the Cross album. I already listened to it, but you know, like it's been a while since I did. But I definitely do need to fucking make a review of it because, yeah, I guess. Yay, French art is being actually really good for some reason. Yeah, in terms of my vibe meter right now, honestly, I'm feeling a 9 out of 10. So I think I'm gonna go with a 9 out of 10. I think it's pretty solid, you know, like I mean, I think it's pretty solid. It's a fucking 9 out of 10. But yeah, honestly, I enjoyed it quite a lot. I think it's, you know, definitely an experience that, again, it's only 17 minutes. So I definitely think that people should definitely experience this, right? I think it's very good, and I think that it will enrich in the, experience, and definitely it will make you enjoy music more, I think. But yeah, that's it for me for this album, and I'll see you tomorrow with a new one.